All right, good afternoon and welcome everyone. This is John Morgan. I am going to be hosting the event today. This is focused on people that are new to 2020, and I'm looking at this as we're kicking it off from scratch. How do you do the things you need to do to be efficient and impactful right on day one of using 2020? So we're going to start with, where do you find help? Where do you find the catalogs? I'm going to walk through and show you how I produce, the cool images that you see online. So number one, how do you get help anytime, anywhere? At the very top of your screen, there's a feature. It's a ribbon. It's called Help. Under Help, there's an option right here called Watch Training Videos. I would highly, highly, highly recommend this to you. So even if you've gone in and you've played around and you've learned the basics and you discover you have a list of 4 or 5 questions, before reaching out to somebody, I highly recommend that you click on that button right there, and if you give it a second, it will actually load our 101 e-learning. And if you look on the right-hand side over here, you'll actually see subjects, accessing the program, I should say, drawing walls, adding elevations, editing items. If I go to the next button over here, you'll see that we have moldings and saving to idea centers and so forth. So we have functions in here. So if I clicked on Draw and Edit Countertop, and then I moved down and said, I want to know how to modify countertops. All I have to do is click on that, and if you watch, a little video will start over here. Now I have my sound turned off, so you can't hear any sound right now, but the video would start. And if I just jump ahead here a little bit, you'll see that I'm actually going in and I'm going to radius the corner on the countertop. I'll right-click on it, and you'll see a little optional pop up, and then you can make your different changes to it. That's a really great way, and you'll see it's only 4 minutes and 42 seconds. That is an awesome way for you as a new 2020 user to learn how to use features that you're not familiar with already. So again, play around, learn the basics, but as you start to make a list of things that you don't know, simply go to Help, click on Watch Training Videos, and they're all listed there. All you have to do is click on them by subject, and in 4 minutes you'll be an expert in the question that you just had. That's step one. Next question I typically get from a new user is, where are all the cool catalogs? Now I'm going to talk about cloud catalogs in just a second. And anybody who was with us at KBiz saw a ton of talk presentations on cloud catalogs. We're going to do that next. But you might be looking at your 2020 and saying, all right, when John is talking to me, John goes over to drag and drop and clicks on the arrow. And when he clicks on the arrow, he has a whole lot more catalogs on the left than I do. He has catalogs such as GE, KitchenAid, Kohler, if I scroll down, Sensio, Sharp, and Sub-Zero, Wolf, Thermador, lots and lots and lots of catalogs. Where does John get those catalogs from? It's pretty simple. If I go over to my internet browser and I click on 2020.net, so I want you right now to write that down, 2020.net. Now, if you've never used that before, you can actually create a login right here. See where it says not registered? You can simply go in here and click and register, and it will allow you to create a password. But I am registered, so let me show you how this works. Hold on just a second. I'm just going to go in and type in my personal information, and I have a password. So when I type in my password and click login, watch what happens now. It's going to take me to the 2020.net site, and when I go to 2020.net, the very first thing you're going to see are manufacturer catalogs. Now you'll see lots of other cool things like training and other things listed here. Matter of fact, if you go into the virtual training, you'll actually find a series of videos called 201 videos, which take you even one level higher than the ones I already showed you. Now, if you want a catalog, there's several ways to search. You can search by a manufacturer, you can search by an update type, or even the type of manufacturer. So if I were to click on the arrow here next to my manufacturers, you'll see a list of all the manufacturers' catalogs listed here. Cambria, Danver, Electrolux, Faber range hoods, GE, Grass, Ironaway, KitchenAid, Liebherr, Lifespan Closets, Sensio Lighting, on and on and on. Here's a great list of catalogs. Now, these catalogs are non-cabinet supplier catalogs. The vast majority of your cabinet catalogs are actually going to be distributed directly from the manufacturer. So if you're looking for appliance catalogs or accessory catalogs or such, plumbing catalogs, you could go to 2020.net, create a login, and all you have to do is click on that catalog to download it, and then you would load it like any other catalog that you would use in 2020. Very, very simple. Now, I want to point out a couple of interesting catalogs to you, and I want you to make a note on that. Number one, on the right-hand side of my screen, see where it says Download Sensio? I highly recommend that as soon as we're done today, you do that. Click on Download Sensio, and here's why. That will activate the lighting wizard, which I will talk about later on. The other thing that I would recommend you do is, if you go into the manufacturer updates by type and you click on it, there's catalogs in here that you'll see here like lighting, virtual showroom, 2020 generic. If you click on 2020 generic and hit submit, it will give you a list of catalogs, and in these catalogs you're going to find some countertop catalogs. You want to look for countertop catalogs, countertop wizard catalogs, depending on where you are. Most of you are probably doing it in English. You want to look for the 2020 both imperial and metric catalogs and download those and install as well. So make a note that you want to download both the generic imperial and metric countertop catalogs, and if I go back, you want to download the Sensio catalog. And I'll tell you why that's important in a little while, but those are the three things you want to make sure that you absolutely download from 2020.net. If we go back over to our PowerPoint real quick, the next question is, how do I connect to the cloud? All right, great question. So let's come back and let's go back into our 2020 again. And I mentioned before that when you're designing, and so far as you've been playing with 2020, my guess is you've been going over to the drag and drop menu and selecting catalogs from here. Now there's lots and lots of catalogs that are available over here, but one of the things you're going to find is over time your catalogs are migrating to the cloud. And what that means is that instead of you having to download catalogs, all you have to do is be live online, and you'll have access to any catalog you want, non-cabinet catalog I'm talking about. You'll have access to these catalogs 24/7 if you're online, and they will always be up to date because the manufacturers are updating these, posting these to the cloud, so whenever you go to design, you're always guaranteed to be using the most up-to-date information possible. Now, if you look at your 2020 right now, all right, so if you're looking at your screen, you have your workspace here, your three boxes, your information placement zone and drag and drop are here. Your ribbons are at the top of the screen, just like any other Windows program. But on the far right-hand side of your screen is a tab called Cloud. Now you notice when I move over, watch what happens. When I touch it, it opens up and it says Email Password. If you already have an email and a password, and by the way, it's different than your 2020.net password, but if you already have an email and a password set up, all you have to do is type those in and sign in. If you do not have an email and a password, you need to register. And when you click on register, it will take you to a screen where you need to fill out your company name and so forth. You'll see I'm coming to a registration screen now. You simply type in an address, a password, your profile details, where you are market-wise, and click sign up. And you will have an email and a password set up so that you can use 2020 Cloud as well. So again, how did I do that? I went to my 2020 main screen, I moved over to 2020 Cloud, and I simply clicked on register. Now, once you're registered, all you need to do is type in your information. So I'm going to log in live right in front of you. I'm going to come down here and type in my password. I will click OK, and if I give it a second, it's authenticating my password. It takes me right into 2020 Cloud, and you'll notice it's on News. This is telling me the most up-to-date information about catalogs. So you'll see that this Symphony catalog, Aquati, I guess that is, that's new to me. I haven't used that one myself yet. That's available for our UK users, just been announced. And you can scroll through and see any recent announcements. But if you actually want to design using cloud catalogs, all you need to do is click on Browse. And when you click on Browse, it'll open up the catalogs that you have available. And see right here where it says GE Appliance? If I click on the arrow next to this, this will list all of the catalogs that are currently active. Now, all of these catalogs are live, but only the one that I put a check mark next to shows up on my screen. So if I clicked on Select All of these catalogs are active. So I could choose, let's say, SMEG. Oops, hold on a second. Actually, let me turn everything off but SMEG. Let me turn that off. I can come down here and say, I want to go to the small appliances. I can click on it, and it'll say, well, what SMEG toaster do you want to use? I'd like to use the old Thunderbird turquoise blue. Or maybe I'd like to come up here and say, I would, instead of using a 4-slice toaster, maybe I want to put a blender in. And then I can choose the different blenders I want. Or I could click on the catalog and say, let's turn off SMEG, and let's go up to 2020. 2020 has a full generic catalog where I could even go in and put books on the countertop, or I could put posters on the wall, or bathroom accessories in the bathrooms. All you need to do at that point is just click on the arrow, and you'll see bathroom accessories, bedroom accessories, chairs, tables, clocks, decorative items, electrical, on and on and on. Now, these catalogs are always there. They're constantly being updated. The only thing that you need to do is create a password and a login, and you have access to them too. I highly recommend that you do this immediately. I mentioned downloading some catalogs from 2020.net. This is probably the number one thing that I would do if I were you and you're brand new to 2020. As soon as we hang up today, I would go over to the cloud, create a registration, because it gives me access to all of these awesome catalogs, which are all high-definition resolution images, so they give you photorealism when you're working. They're always up to date, and I think you'll see that anything you create, it really steps up the imagery that you're providing to your clients. So do that right away. Now, before I move into a couple of the other items, I want to talk a little bit about my screen, and then I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint for a second. When you're working in 2020, you have a piece of graph paper, and each block is equal to a square foot. If you take your mouse, you have a wheel on the mouse. If you roll the wheel forward, it zooms in. If you roll the wheel backwards, it zooms out. If you hold the wheel down, you can zoom in on a particular item and actually hold the wheel down and move it around on the screen. It gives you that little hand there. See the hand? That allows you to grab a hold of the piece of paper and move it around. Now, the items that you see on your screen, on the left-hand side, this is information box. Watch how this works. If I put my cursor inside of a workspace, or let's say we put it on top of a cabinet, it'll tell me exactly what that cabinet is and my dimensions. So if I have available space, it'll tell me that. See where it says placement? If I were to place a cabinet on the screen, placement would tell me how much room I have left, right, and where the item is actually placed. Drag and drop, that's where you find your catalogs that are not in the cloud. Okay? Options, either drag and drop or cloud for placing items. At the top of your screen, I mentioned ribbons. See, before I clicked on help and it took me right in here and I clicked on videos? Well, we have file, which is your standard Windows features, load, save, import, export, features like that. Home would actually take you to your most frequently used Windows functions like undo, redo. Room layout. This is where you find your walls, which we're going to use next, your windows and doors. Items. This is where you'll find cool things like Countertop Wizard, Lighting Wizard, and where you pick your door styles. Remember before I told you to download the Sensio catalog, and I told you to download the generic countertop catalogs, both Imperial and Metric. That will activate Countertop Wizard and Lighting Wizard in your system. That's an absolute must for you to do. Annotations is where you can draw lines, make dimensions, add notes. Presentation, this is the tab that you would use if you're going to give something to your customer. You want to actually hand them a perspective or hand them a list of cabinets or so forth. You would go to presentation to find your perspectives, your top views, your front views, and over here, your reports. And then view allows you to determine what you see on the screen. Now let me give you a quick tip, and this is something that may be relevant to you now, or it may not be relevant at all, but you still want to write this down. See these three boxes on the left-hand side of your screen? Do not, and I repeat, do not click on the X because the box goes away. These boxes are very important to your designing. Now, the way you get these boxes to return to your screen if you happen to turn them off is you go to View. See where it says Drag and Drop Information and Placement Zone? You simply click on them and they would reappear. So if you clicked on Information Box and you clicked on the X, you can always go back to View, click on Information, and the View box will appear here again. So you have that opportunity. That's pretty much the only time I really go to View other than switching between designs. I typically will have multiple designs open, and that allows me to go in and make changes to my designs. So let's go back to room layout. And I want to, before I show you room layout, I just want to bring up a live picture. The picture you're looking at right now is actually a live picture of the kitchen that you saw on my screen a moment ago. It's also the same kitchen that you saw in my opening perspective, and you'll see it starting to render. We're going to come back to this and use this multiple times this afternoon. So again, I want to remind everybody that if you do have any questions, please go to the chat room. And when you go to the chat room, and I'm going to open up my screen to see how many people have joined us. Wow, looks like a lot of people have joined us, so welcome, welcome. Go to the chat room. Simply type in your question to everyone, and we have Frank from customer support online with us who is watching for your questions. Matter of fact, if you get a chance, Frank, why don't you send a message out to everybody in the chat room just so they know where to find you. Now, if I go to my next screen, I just talked about how do I connect to the cloud. The next question I usually get is, what's the best way to draw walls? That is an excellent question, and sometimes it may seem a little bit basic, but quite frankly, drawing walls may be the most important thing you do in your design. Because if the walls aren't correct, nothing else in the design is going to be correct. So we want to make sure that we get the basics down first. So let me go over to File, and let me start a drawing from scratch, just like you would. So I'm going to go to New, open up a brand new piece of paper. When I open up this piece of paper, all I need to do is take my cursor, click somewhere on the screen, and then move, and you'll notice it's drawing a wall. It's just like taking a pencil, putting the tip of the pencil down on a piece of graph paper, and then starting to draw. If I move up, it moves up. If I move to the right, it moves to the right. If I move left, it moves left. If I move on an angle, it moves on an angle. It's basically just following my mouse. Now, I use a method to draw that I call point and type. Basically what I do is when I click on the floor plan, I simply move the mouse to point the direction that I want that wall to move, and then I type in the length. And if you look right here, the length is right here where I'm circling on the left-hand side of my screen, right underneath the placement. So you point up to say it's going to go up, and then you type in your length. I'm going to type in 144. Enter. There's my wall. I'm going to take my mouse and say my next wall is going to go straight across the room, and it's going to be 156. Enter. Now, a lot of times, we're doing U-shapes, the wall will come straight down, but that's not what I want to do. I want to move up. So if I point up on my keyboard, I'll type in 90 inches. And then I'll point across, and let's say this is 110 inches. And then if I point up on an angle, I could say this is going to be 48, point on another angle, 48, point on another angle, 48, and I've created a bay window. I'll come over here another 60 inches. I'll point my wall down and say this time it's going to be 234 inches. I'll go across the room and say, I don't know, 190 inches. I'm just making things up at this point. But you can always use the mouse to point whatever direction you want. Draw a wall. Now, I didn't type any dimensions in. So when I hit escape, I want you to watch what the difference is between the walls I just drew and the originals. I drew 144 by 156 by 90 by 110. But if you look at my last couple walls, I was just randomly moving the mouse around. And you'll see that I have walls that are 16, 11 sixteenths, and 117 and 5/8. Well, that shows you that you have accuracy up to a 16th of an inch. Matter of fact, if you wanted to make a change, let's say this wall right here is 110. If I double click on it, it takes me to the wall properties. That's where I determine what the length of a wall is. I can go back and modify that at any point. Maybe I miskeyed it. Maybe I meant for it to be 120 inches, but I typed in 110. If I come back here, all I have to do is delete the 1, type in a 2. If I hit apply, watch what happens to my room. It's now stretched my room 10 inches, everything after it moved. If that wall was supposed to be 144 and 7/16 inches, all I had to do is type in 144 space 7/16, hit apply, and it changed. That's all I need to do. And you'll see that the wall has a green line on it. If I click on any wall, I can adjust any wall in my plan. So if I clicked on wall number 9, that's this long wall over here. I can simply go around the room and make changes. That is an incredibly effective feature when you have somebody who goes out, they field measure, they bring you back some dimensions, you start to lay out a plan, then you go out and double check the dimensions, and you find out the original dimensions you were given were incorrect. Don't worry about it. You can just go back and make changes to your 2020 anytime you want. Now, how did I do that? I simply double-clicked on a wall, and it opened up the properties and allowed me to start making those changes. Now, there's lots and lots and lots of other changes that I can make to this room. I'm going to recommend that you go into the video section and watch some of those as well. But this is the highlight of what gets you started and the main changes that you're going to be making. Now, let me come back out of here real quick. So let's say that I delete this kitchen. I'm just going to click on it, hit delete on my keyboard. Let me do something new. I'm going to start down here, and I'm going to say my wall is going to be 282 by 300 by 282 by 300. I just made a big old rectangle, okay? So here's my room. Now, I wanted to do this because I wanted to explain to you a little bit about room properties. Remember, the best way to draw walls is to simply point the direction you want to move and then type in the length, whatever it's going to be, whether it's metric, imperial, whatever it is. Now, once you do that, once you're finished with the room, here's something that I do immediately. If you look at the top of my screen and your screen, right here is a little button called Perspective. This is something that we call one-click feature. I could go to Presentation and choose Perspective, but that's 2 clicks. Same thing with things like Save. If I want to save my kitchen, I can always go to File and choose Save, or I can just hit Save. So the most frequently used features in 2020 are actually listed here at the very top, and all you have to do is click on them. As soon as I draw my room, and I mean this, every time I draw a project, as soon as I draw it, the very first thing I do is not place windows and doors and cabinets. The very first thing I do is I open up a perspective. Now, you notice it was a line drawing to begin with, then it became color, and then if you look around the room, it put lighting around the room. Later on, we're going to talk about a feature down here under lighting called Scene, and you're going to see something that says Auto Lighting Intensity. That's the lighting that you see around the room here automatically. it automatically adds light whether you do or not. If you hold your left button down, you can actually tilt this up and down. And I can zoom into the room simply by rolling my mouse in, and now I'm standing in the room looking at that corner. And if you give it a second, it'll re-render it in color. And then if you give it about 10 to 15 seconds, it'll actually convert it all the way from a line drawing to a photorealistic drawing. Now, this isn't quite as good looking as the first kitchen I showed you, but that's because we're just getting started. So again, when I draw walls, I always finish drawing walls by clicking on this button right here, which is perspective, and I open up a perspective. And I want you to notice that I did not close the perspective. If I move my cursor to the bottom of the screen, you'll notice that right now I have 3 windows open. I have a perspective of the other kitchen, I have a floor plan of my new kitchen, and I have a color perspective of the new kitchen as well. I actually have 3 windows open, and I do that because 2020's drawings are what we call dynamic. That means that if I change the floor plan, the perspective will automatically change too. So the first thing that we do once we've completed the room itself is the same thing you would do in real life. We're going to place windows and doors. I find windows and doors under room layout. It's the same place I find walls. See where it says basic door, basic window, and openings and obstacles? If you clicked on openings and obstacles, this will give you a menu that says openings, obstacles, reserved areas, cutouts, windows. If I double clicked, it would say, what kind of window do you want? I like to have a standard window. I want it to be white, and I want it to be a hung window. And then I can go through and place these. So I can do it individually. There's literally dozens and dozens and dozens of windows and doors. To save time, there's a window that's been saved as a standard automatic window, which you can change. Again, if you go to the videos, I actually have a video on how to change this. But if you just click on basic window and read your directions, click on the placement zone of a wall or construction line on the floor area. That means if I click right here, it's going to tell me I want my window on that wall. Here's a preview of my window. What height do we want the window to be? 42 inches. I will click OK. When I click OK, I can move my window anywhere I want. This is what I was telling you before. Remember, directions are here. Your placement zone features are here. This is telling me that right now my window is centered at X dimension. The width is 30. The left dimension is going to be 188. But I can change that. Write this down. I've said this a couple times. Write this down. Write down 3 letters. T like Tommy, A like Apple, B like Bobby. T-A-B, tab. That's the key on the far left-hand side of your keyboard. If you let go of your mouse and you hit the tab key, every time you click it, it scrolls through your counters. So I could go down here and say width, 42 inches. I'm not going to hit enter. I'm going to hit tab again. And it says, what's your wall left dimension? Well, maybe I've measured a room, and I know, actually I shouldn't say maybe, I'm sure that I've measured the room, and I know what the wall left dimension is. And that wall left dimension is going to be 179. When I type in a width and a left dimension, if I zoom in, it's already figured out everything else. 179, 42, 61 inches out of the corner. Pretty basic. Now, I have a massive room here, so I probably have lots of windows and doors, but we only have a limited amount of time together, and I'm already at the halfway point. So I'm going to keep on going, but you could always go back here to openings and obstacles and continue adding the room openings, as many as you need. Now, remember before I told you that I always open up a perspective? If I go back to the bottom of my screen and I look at my perspective again, there's a window on that wall. Because my images or my output is dynamic. Whatever I change on my floor plan, it will automatically change on my perspective. So let's come back out of there. Next step in what we're going to do. Next question I typically get is, how do I place cabinets? Well, I'm actually going to do cabinets and appliances and everything at one time. And we'll do a couple. We're not going to do a ton because I only have a short amount of time with you. So let's come back down here and say, let's place some cabinets in this room. Now, I mentioned before about catalogs. I said that cloud catalogs are things like appliances and so forth. Your cabinet manufacturer's catalogs are still in drag and drop, and they probably will stay there for the next 3-6 months or so. If I click on this arrow, I can scroll up and down to the catalogs from my brand-specific manufacturer. So I can go up and down and find their name. What I'm going to do right now is actually use a generic catalog. That's called the Sample F catalog. F means framed. If you see a Sample E, that means Euro or frameless. But they're generic catalogs that have been built in. Now, if you're using our generic catalog or you're using a real cabinet manufacturer's catalog, all the same principles apply. If you want to find a base cabinet, you go to base. You want to find a corner cabinet, go to base corner. You want to find an oven cabinet, go to tall. This is actually divided up just like your paper spec books are divided up. So if I double-clicked on base, it would give me a list of all the categories under base. Base door drawer, 3-drawer, 4-drawer, 5-drawer, sink bases. If I double-click on sink base, it'll say I have a standard or a clip corner, or whatever other options your cabinet manufacturer offers. If I double-click on standard, here's a list of my cabinets. I'm going to choose an SB36. If your manufacturer calls it an SRB or a BS36, that's what you'll see there because you're using their specific nomenclature. If I drag this over and drop it right underneath of the window, it'll automatically pop up and give me a preview of the cabinet. If I click on the plus over here and say I'd like to have a sink, I'm going to choose, let's say, this Kohler sink right here. There's my sink. If that's acceptable to me, I simply click OK, and there's my sink base. And if I zoom in a little bit, you'll see my sink base is centered directly below my window. If we go back and look at our perspective, there you go. A little bit dark because I haven't added light to the room yet, but there you go. Now, I want to add more cabinets. Well, you can always go back to categories and click on the categories. But for me, the best thing to do is just type what I want. There's a little bar down here at the bottom. It's called it's a search bar. So I can go in, and if I know my cabinet manufacturer's nomenclature, I can simply type the cabinet in. BC36. That's a base corner 36. Let me do that again. There we go. BC36. I'm going to drag that guy over here, drop it into place, snap it in. Notice right here it says I have 27 inches left. I'll come down here to search, B27, B27. I'm going to grab one with 2 rollout trays, drag and drop it, slide it up against the sink base. That way I leave the opening here, which is 1 inch. I need to add a filler. BF3. I can go grab a filler, drag that over, drop it into place. There's my filler. Maybe I'm going to put a range on the right-hand side here. So what I'll do with that case is I'll go put a drawer base in first. I'm going to put in a DB18. I'm going to drag a drawer base 18 over, snap it in. And then if I want to place a range right here, maybe I jump over to the 2020 cloud catalogs. I click up here, tell it I don't want the 2020. I actually want the GE catalog. I'll come down here and click. It'll say, what do you want? I want GE cooking. So it'll say freestanding ranges. I can scroll down here, electric cooking, built-in electric cooking products, 3E slide-in electric ranges, blah, blah, blah. I can go in and click whatever I want. So let's say that we click on that one. That's the range that I want. I want to click Add. When I click Add, it snapped the GE range in. And if I simply come back and take a quick look at this, there we go. Again, I need to add some more light. We'll do that in a minute. There's my GE range and my cabinets. Awesome. Now, we can go through and place all the items in a room in a similar fashion. But if I go back over to my PowerPoint again and say, what's my typical next question is, it's how much do these cabinets cost? How can I pick the door style, the finish? Well, that's pretty simple. If I go back to my 2020 again, there's a feature. I'm going to zoom back out of here. There's a feature under items. See items? This is a feature I'm going to use a couple times in a row here. But under items is an option called styles and pricing. If I click on styles and pricing, it'll come up. It'll say I have a GE catalog, a room catalog, and a cabinet catalog. I'm going to click on the cabinet catalog. And when I click on the cabinet catalog, I'll go to Catalog Styles, and right here it'll say wall door, base door, tall door, drawers, on and on and on. So if I'm using a real cabinet manufacturer's catalog, all I have to do is double-click in the section next to it, and it would show me their available door styles. I'm going to pick a variation of shaker right here. I'm just going to call it Geneva. Let's scroll down again, and I'll say for the wall doors, I want to use the same door. For the tall doors, I want to use the same door. And for my drawers, I actually just want to use a slab. I'm not going to use the 5-piece drawer front. So there we go. Down here where it says Species Premium, if I double-click on this, this will show me the wood species. And if I went in and said, I'm going to use pecan, it would show me the different colors, the different stains that are available, including upcharges for using pecan. Now I'm actually going to go back here again. Let's go back and let's go back to finish. I'm going to actually make this white. I know this is thermofoil on the door, but in a real catalog you would have paint colors listed there. I'm simply going to choose white because I want to show you what a white kitchen would look like. So I'm going to go ahead and I picked door styles, finish premiums. I'll click close. Now 2 things have happened. Number 1, I can actually go and take a look at how much my kitchen costs. If I actually go back here to styles and pricing and I click on sample F, there's a tab here called design charges where I can go in here where it says overall and put a discount in and say we're going to sell this at 50 off, or I'm going to sell it at $1,000 off, or whatever I want to. If I want to know how much this costs, all I need to do is go back to the presentation tab. Remember I told you, anytime you want to hand something to a customer, you can find it under presentation, whether it's perspectives, top views, front views, or reports. If I click on report, right here, I went presentation, report, I will double click on quote. When I open up quote, I can change what type of quote I have, but to keep things simple today, we're just going to say view. And when I view the quote, let's just give this a moment. There we go, that's cover page 1. By the way, you can change logos and everything else on here. You can put your company logo there. This tells me that my sink base 36 is $480. My base 27 is $394. My drawer base 18 is $509. And my total list price so far is $21.85. Not bad. I put a couple cabinets in, $21.85. What's that? 5 cabinets. So the cabinets are averaging a little bit over $400 per cabinet. List price. If we wanted to put in a discount of 50%, you would actually see that this is going to be, what would that be? $1,092.50 would show up here instead of $21.85. Pretty simple. How did I do that? Again, I went to items. I clicked on styles and pricing. I chose the cabinet catalog, and I simply went to catalog styles and made my selections. When I was finished with that, I went to presentation, I clicked on reports, and I simply double-clicked on a quote and generated a report. That's how you know how much it is. Now, I mentioned before that whenever you go to styles and pricing and you change a door style or a color or such, a finish, then it does 2 things. Number 1, it allows you to price it or quote it. That's number 1. Number 2, it actually changes your picture. So if I go back down and I open up my perspective, you're going to notice now that I have a white kitchen with shaker doors and slab drawer fronts. Now you're going to look at this and say, hey John, that's a little bit dark. It is, because I haven't put any light in the room yet, but if we adjust this just a little bit, let's say we zoom in a little bit more, because I'm going to put a countertop on this in just a second. You're going to notice that you can see more detail here as we're generating. And I'm going to talk about views later on, but at the bottom of your screen, whenever you have a view, there's a button down here that looks like a light bulb. If you click on the light bulb, you can go to the very top and say, I want to add sunlight, and I want to put the sun outside of this window. If I come back and take a look at this again, you'll see shadowing on the cabinets over here on the right. If I click on the light bulb and I go to ceiling, I can actually put a ceiling light in and adjust where that ceiling light is. So I could say, I'm going to make this really bright so it shows up more, and I'm going to move this light over near my sink base. When I click on this again, you're going to notice it's a lot brighter in this section than it was just a moment ago. And you also have the ability under lighting to click on scene, and you can make the whole room brighter. For instance, I could take the ambient light intensity, and let's turn it way up here on the right. And if I go back and look, my whole room is just brighter just because I made the ambient light brighter. So if I move back a little bit, you'll notice my whole room is now much, much brighter. And I can adjust shadowing and everything based on that lighting. So there's lots of opportunities to change that directly in the perspective by clicking on the lighting button. I highly recommend you play with the lighting. Worst comes to worst, just close the rendering and start over again. But the lighting is a really cool and fast way to adjust the room to look the way you want it to look with your client. Now let's come back out of here for a second. Let me jump back over to my PowerPoint. And what's next on here? Next question I typically get is, how do we adjust countertops and lighting? Now, I'm also going to talk about how do I present the clients as well. I'm going to cover all this in kind of like a 1-2 punch here. So let's go back to our perspective. Back to the floor plan. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a countertop on this particular kitchen, all right? Then I'm going to switch to my existing kitchen and talk a little bit more about lighting. So if you want to add countertops, I would go to Items, and I would always use a feature called Countertop Wizard. Now, I mentioned in the very beginning, remember one of the very first things I did was I took you to 2020.net. And I said, that's where you can download catalogs. Well, not only can you download the generic catalogs, which I said you must do, you must download the 2020 Countertop Metric and Imperial catalog. Once you load those, Countertop Wizard will become active. When that becomes active, if you click on Countertop Wizard, it's going to come up and just walk you through the steps on laying out a countertop. First of all, it's going to ask you, do you want stone or solid surface? I'll hit stone, and you'll notice the next thing it does, it says, what catalog do you want to use? Well, it could be Cambria. It could be any of the Cosentino series. It could be Metro Quartz, and there's a number of others that are listed there too. So if I wanted to go in and choose something, let's say we leave it on Cambria right now. I might come back and use Metro Quartz. That's actually our newest catalog. But let's say we leave Cambria on here right now. Where do you find those catalogs? Everybody should already know that. You find those catalogs in 2020.net and download them. But if I click on Next and you give it a second, it will load the Cambria catalog, and then I can go down and say, I want to use Armitage, or I want to use Britannica. I love to use Britannica on big islands. I'm going to use, let's say, Berwyn. Okay, so let's use Berwyn. I'm going to do that because of the distinct pattern. So let's say we use Berwyn right now. I will click Next. And you're going to notice that there's a little pattern that you form whenever you're in countertops. It'll list each of the functions you need to perform, but all you need to do is make a selection. I'll say 3cm, click Next. It'll say, do you want to auto-design it over the existing cabinets, or did you want to choose a shape? I'm going to auto-design it. Next. It'll say, here's your countertop. Is that okay? Yes, it is. I'll hit Next. Now it's going to come up. It's going to say, do you want to put a backsplash in? And I'll say, no. A lot of times I like to put tile in and so forth. What edge do you want? I'm going to choose the Idris edge, Idris 3cm. We'll click Next. It wants to know about the sink. See the sink is highlighted in red? I need to hit Edit. Whenever you see something highlighted in red, that means you need to edit it and you need to define it. So I'll come over here and say this sink is a drop-in, and it's going to be a non-cast iron sink. If I hit Next, it'll just take me to my next step. And we'll just keep right on going. You're going to put a dishwasher in? I am, but I'll do that later on. It's not going to be underneath the countertop I'm drawing for you real quick. And then it wants to know, are there obstacles, are there cutouts, and so forth. But you know what? You're typically not worried about that. And you're typically not worried about that because if you've drawn the room, you've already put obstacles and all those things in. 2020 will design around those. You only need to do that if you're going to draw the countertop from scratch. Now, the last two questions are going to be appliance edges and placing that Idris edge. So I'm going to go in here and say I put an appliance edge there, and I'm going to put the Idris edge here and here. And when I click next, it'll come up and say, do you want to make any notes? I'm going to say nope, and then I'm going to hit finish. Before I hit finish, I just want to remind you what I did. I went to Countertop Wizard, and all I did was answer the question and hit next, answer the question and hit next, answer the question and hit next. Very, very simple. When I hit finish, if I come back in here and take a quick look, I want you to notice it's put a countertop in, and if I zoom in, I'm going to get in here pretty close here, so let's zoom in. I just want you to see the countertop texture. Actually, that's pretty bright there because of the sunlight, so let me move in over here a little bit more. But you'll see the countertop texture in the detail that you're looking for. Isn't that cool? Now, I get questions all the time about photorealism. Photorealism is really based on the textures that you import, and if you're using catalogs from the cloud or you're using catalogs like Cambria or Metro Quartz or Silestone or such, those catalogs will automatically make your images look photorealistic. So make sure that's what you're using, that you're not using old textures or old catalogs. Now let me switch real quick. I have a couple more things I want to show you. So let me go back over to my original kitchen. By the way, the kitchen that you're looking at right now, I call this the Anthony Johnson kitchen because this is actually designed by one of our 2020 users. Anthony was a KBIS with us. He's one of our award winners. He's only been using 2020 for a few years, and it's just incredible what he's able to do. And I like to use real users' kitchens, or I like to utilize real users' kitchens because I know a lot of people look at the images and they think marketing did that or such, and that's not the case. When you're watching me live, I'm actually using real kitchens, and I'm making these changes live. And Anthony does a phenomenal job. He's a designer in Northern Virginia. And if we take a quick look at the image itself, you'll see this is Anthony's kitchen. You'll see things like mountain scenes outside of windows. If I move forward a little bit, move into the living room, you'll see Anthony has a hockey game on the TV here in the living room. If it starts to redraw, there's my hockey game. If I turn and look back into the room, you'll see other types of details in our room, including backsplash and tile. Now, how am I moving? I'm moving by rolling the wheel back and forth. If I hold the wheel down, that allows me to move up and down. So I can move up just a little bit. And let's say that I hold left button down and tilt. If you hold the left button down, that allows you to actually look right and left. And up and down, these are angles, whereas before I was just moving straight on a parallel plane. So I can look up and down and look into the room. So let's say we look back. So that's a little quick tip on how to work. Now, people ask me all the time, how do I get these great images? It's a setting. I'll come back to lighting in just a moment. But if you remember, I also talked about other renderings we can have. And if you look right here, see this little gear? If you were to click on this gear, you can change the type of rendering. For instance, I could say wireframe, and my kitchen will become wireframe. Way too busy for this kitchen? I typically do that in elevations. If I click on the gear and I click hidden line, it's a plain hidden line drawing. We still do a lot of that, but I will tell you today's consumers are not looking for hidden line. They're looking for this. They're looking for texture. That's the feature that I use 99% of the time. And if I click on texture, there's a button right here called Global Illumination. If I click on that, that's what allows my light to bounce in the room. So if there's a quartz countertop, light will bounce off of it. If there's fabric on the chair, the fabric will absorb it. Now, you're getting a variation of this online, so it might not look quite as good as it does on my screen. But I can tell you it looks phenomenal on my screen, and that's because I have a really good computer that has resolution that's like 3,900, and I can't remember the other number that goes with it, by 19 something, but the resolution is absolutely phenomenal. That's the key to getting great images like this. Now, one of the questions I get quite often has to do with lighting. And I've already talked to you a little bit about adjusting your lighting. Remember I told you can go into sunlight and turn it on? I'm actually going to turn the sunlight off this time. Remember I told you go into ceiling lights and add them? I turned it off. I also told you that you could go into scene and take your ambient lighting and make it bright. I'm going to take my ambient lighting and move it all the way down to the left so it's off. And then I'm going to take my standard user lights and move them down so they're a little bit darker. And watch what happens in my room now. My room is pretty dark. Now, if you look up here at the upper left-hand corner, see the metal cage at the bottom of these lights? There is a light turned on inside of these, but it's very, very dim at this point, so my room is pretty dark. I wanted to show you this because I wanted to show you the feature called, under Items, Lighting Wizard. Remember I told you before? Remember I told you that I wanted you to download the Sensio catalog? That's what activates Lighting Wizard. If I click on Lighting Wizard, it's actually going to come up and it's going to say, John, do you want to do Standard, Deluxe, or Premium? We're running out of time here, so I'm not going to go through each one of these. But Standard would basically put lights underneath of your cabinets, wall cabinets. Deluxe would put them in a couple of areas, and Premium would allow you to put Sensio LED lighting anywhere in the room. Over wall cabinets, under wall cabinets, inside wall cabinets with glass doors, and in the toe kick area. And it actually defines the product that you're going to use. See here where it says lighting type under wall cabinets? I don't like puck lighting. I don't like to see circles on countertops. So I'm going to click on puck and I'm going to change that to be flex strip. It'll say what type of product. I want it to be the 12 volt by 2.5 watt. I want it to be dimmable, so I'll say yes. And when I make that selection, watch what happens. It's going to take a second because it's actually going to go around the room and put LED lightings everywhere that it needs them. Matter of fact, not only does it show the LED lighting or it places it in my perspective, but I actually have a lighting floor plan that will show me all the component pieces of the lighting as well. And I can actually make a list right down to the drivers and what I need in the lighting. Now, if I come back in here and take a quick look at my view, I want you to notice now that my room's not just dark, but it's actually put lighting in underneath of the cabinets, in my toe kick space, inside of the wall cabinets. And if you give this 10, 15, 20 seconds, it'll go back and keep rendering this or re-rendering this until it cleans it up until it's a photograph and it looks like it's a nighttime view with just LED lighting in the room. It's pretty cool. Now, I was able to do that simply because I loaded the catalog. That's why you want to go to 2020.net to load the catalogs, because once you do that, it activates this feature right here called Lighting Wizard, and that allows you to quickly illuminate the room with lighting. Now, I can always go back to this rendering, and I can always click on lighting here and say, let's turn up the ambient lighting, let's make the room a little bit brighter again, and you'll see that I have lighting throughout the room, and then you just have a hint of the LED lighting in a room, like right here where I'm circling, but the overall room itself is brighter. But the LED lighting makes a big impact in the room, and it's really simple to do. So I highly, highly, highly recommend that you do that. Now, in our last 5 minutes together, I have one more thing that I want to talk about, and that's 360 and virtual reality. I get tons and tons and tons of questions about 360 and virtual reality. Now, I want everybody to do something right now. I want you to grab a pen, and I want you to write down Panorama dot 2020.net/Pano. Panorama.2020.net/Pano. Now, I've given you some homework or some things to do immediately. I said log in and register for the cloud. I said go to 2020.net and download the catalogs. Honestly, before you do that, as soon as we're done today, take your cell phone out, your smartphone, and in the browser type in panorama.2020.net/Pano. And what you'll see is this. You're going to see this screen come up. And see this button right here where it says Browse 2020 Panorama? When I click on this, this is Anthony Johnson's kitchen again. This kitchen will appear on your cell phone. And you can stand up in your office, hold the cell phone up to your eyes, and simply rotate your body to the right, and the room will rotate to the right on your phone. If you rotate your body to the left, the room will rotate to the left. If you tilt your head and phone towards the floor, you will look at the floor. If you tilt your head upwards, it will look up. Now what's cool is this image. This image is what we call 360, and it's virtual reality compatible all at the same time. So if you were in your 2020 perspective, this is the same exact kitchen. And if I clicked on the button right now, it would make this kitchen look as good as that image you just saw. There's a button right here that looks like a camera, and it's called Save as 360 Panorama. If you click on that in your perspective, it's going to ask you where to place the camera. I know it's a little bit small on your screen. There's a camera right here. You can move this camera anywhere you want your drawing, and you can tell it what quality you want. I always say high retina display. And when you go to save this, it's going to ask you for an email address, yours and your customers. Most designers just put their own email address in both. That way they control when the customer gets that email. Because when you generate this, and this isn't going to happen instantly. It's probably going to take 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes to do this. In your next update of 2020, we'll actually do it in the background so you won't lose any work time. But when you get that link, you can determine when you want to send that link to your client, and then your client can click on that on their phone, and they can stand in their own home and see their kitchen. So if they were to do that, they'd be standing there, and just like I did just a moment ago, they would be able to turn right, left, look up, and look down. Now, there's actually one more step to this. Anybody that was at KBIS saw all the different booths with virtual reality headsets in there. If you're using your cell phone, right here where I'm circling, right here where my cursor is at the bottom, there's a little pair of glasses that appear. If your client clicks on that on their phone, it will create a left eye, right eye experience. And what that means is, again, panorama.2020.net/Pano. What that means is that if you have a pair of plastic goggles that you can slide a cell phone in your showroom, they can actually take their cell phone, slide it in, and stand in your showroom and feel like they're virtually in their kitchen. For $25, you can do that. We're not selling these. Go to Amazon and buy these, or go to Costco and buy these. I have my own sets that I actually keep in my house. Or some of you might have seen the cardboard boxes. They're called Google Cardboard, and they're branded. There's lots of kitchen dealerships out there and some national companies that have started to go to what's called Dodo Case, D-O-D-O Case. You can just go to dodocase.com. They will buy in quantity these cardboard boxes branded with their company logos all over them, and then they will send their customer home with a pair of cardboard goggles that say Best Kitchens of Baltimore, that's where I live, or whatever the name of your company is, and then they show their friends and family, all their friends and family, their cool new kitchen and virtual reality, and it has your logo all over it. When you buy these in bulk, they're about $12.50 each. And then I have some other showrooms that have gone out and bought Oculus glasses. Oculus are much more expensive, $600 a pair, but they actually connect directly to your computer, and your 2020 images and lots of other images make you feel like you're actually standing in that room. It is an absolutely phenomenal experience, and if you think about it, $600 to do that, that's probably the same cost as a smart TV you put on the wall in your office too. So it's not unreasonable to do that. I have more and more people doing it. But most of the dealers to start with are just going to Amazon, buying plastic goggles that hold phones for $25. You just type in VR, like virtual reality goggles, and you can buy those. Just make sure they're big enough for the new, bigger smartphones like the Apple Plus phone and so forth. But this is what showrooms are doing today to add virtual reality immediately. This is really, really called fire. At this point, I am actually done, and I want to, number one, thank each and every one of you for bringing us into your business and making us a part of what you do every day. We're really proud of the hundreds of thousands of relationships we have out there, and we work very closely with all of our customers because we want everybody to not only be profitable and do great designs, but we want everybody to provide the best possible results for the end consumer, our clients, and we're proud to be a part of that with you. Do not hesitate to ask us any questions. Or as I recommended before, please go in and check the videos out. There's lots of awesome space or information out there. Our contact information is 866-698-2020, or you can go to 2020spaces.com. Again, that's 866-698-2020, and I'm going to end on this slide here. I'm actually going to go back. I also want you to write down 2020spaces.com. So that's 2020spaces.com/community. If you haven't joined our community yet, please do. That's an awesome place to go and see people are sharing lots of really good thoughts, content, videos get posted there, not just about 2020, but about kitchen design in general. That's a wonderful place for everybody to learn from each other. So I hope everybody was able to walk away with a couple of really good tips today. If you do have any other questions, please contact us at 866-698-2020. And with that, I'm just going to wish everybody a wonderful rest of your day. So have a great day, everybody. Thank you.